Have you ever discovered that a group of people you know got together and you weren't invited? Maybe you saw the photographs afterwards. Maybe somebody casually mentioned it. Maybe everybody was talking about something that happened and suddenly you realised, oh, I wasn't included. And logically, you might think, so what? It's only a party. They can invite whoever they want. I'm a grown adult. Why should I care? But emotionally, it can hurt. Sometimes far more than you think it should. And then we do something else. We become embarrassed that it hurt. Because surely being upset about being left out is childish. Surely we should have grown out of that. Well, perhaps we haven't. Because social rejection isn't simply an uncomfortable experience. For the human brain, belonging is one of our oldest survival mechanisms, and being excluded can activate something much deeper than disappointment. So today I want to look at why being left out can hurt so much, even when you're perfectly confident, independent adult. Human beings were never designed to live alone. For the most part of human history, belonging to a group wasn't simply socially pleasant, it was survival. If you belonged to the tribe, you had protection, food, shelter, shared knowledge. People watching you while you slept, people helping you raise children, people helping when you were sick or injured. Being expelled from the group could literally threaten your survival. So our brains evolved to pay very close attention to social acceptance. Do I belong here? Am I safe? Am I valued? Could I be rejected? Modern life has changed dramatically, but the ancient part of the human brain hasn't received the software update. So when you're excluded from something today, intellectually you know you're not going to die because you weren't invited to dinner, but emotionally, another part of your brain may register something much more primitive. I've been removed from the group. And that's why the emotional response can seem completely disproportionate to the actual event. The event may be small, but the meaning your brain attaches to it could be enormous. Rejection really does hurt. There's something fascinating about social rejection. Research has shown that some of the brain systems involved in physical pain also become active when we experience social rejection. And when you think about it, that makes evolutionary sense. Physical pain tells you something is threatening your body. Pay attention. Social pain tells you something is threatening your belonging. Pay attention. Both were important to survival. So when somebody says, why are you making such a big deal about it? They may be looking only at the event. You're experiencing the meaning. And those can be completely different things. The event is rarely just the event. This is where things become particularly interesting. Imagine two people discovered they weren't invited to the same party. One person thinks, oh well, never mind, and gets on with their evening. The other person feels devastated. Same event, completely different emotional responses. Why? Because we don't experience events in isolation. We experience them through our history. Perhaps you were excluded at school. Perhaps you were bullied. Perhaps you were the child who never quite fitted in. Perhaps you grew up in a family where another sibling received more attention. Perhaps you spent your life feeling slightly outside the group. Or perhaps you've experienced rejection in relationships. Then something happens today and it connects with all of that. Suddenly you're not simply experiencing what happened on a Saturday night. Your nervous system is responding to every other moment that felt like it, like you're not wanted here. And that's why sometimes we can have a reaction that even surprises us. You think, where on earth did that come from? Well, perhaps it didn't come entirely from today. Today simply found the button. Exclusion creates questions. There's another reason exclusion is psychologically difficult. It creates uncertainty. If somebody tells you directly, I'm having 4 people for dinner because that's all I can fit around the table, you have information. You understand the situation. But when you discover that almost everyone was included except you, your brain has a mystery to solve. And human brains hate unresolved social mysteries. So the questions begin. Why wasn't I invited? Did I do something? Does this person like me? Do others dislike me? Have they been talking about me? Am I actually part of this group? And before you know it, one missing invitation has turned into a complete investigation into your social identity. The brain starts scanning backwards. They were slightly quiet with me last Tuesday. Maybe that comment meant something. Come to think of it, she didn't reply to that message, and suddenly you've constructed an entire theory. Maybe it's correct, maybe it isn't. But uncertainty gives the brain room to fill the gaps. And unfortunately, when we feel threatened, we don't always fill those gaps with the most flattering explanation. Social media has made exclusion visible. There's another element our ancestors never had to deal with: photographic evidence. Years ago, if people went somewhere without you, you might have never known. Now, there it is. 27 photographs, 3 videos, everybody smiling, everybody having a wonderful time, posted while the event was still happening. You can literally sit at home and watch yourself not being included in real time. That's psychologically extraordinary when you think about it. Social media hasn't created rejection. Human beings have always excluded each other. But it has made exclusion incredibly visible and repeatable. Because you don't just discover it once, you can look at the photographs again and again and again. And you can examine who was there, who commented, who liked the photographs, who appears to be particularly friendly with whom. And what started as disappointment can turn into rumination. The event lasts 3 hours, your brain can keep it alive for 3 weeks. Groups have their own psychology. We also need to understand something about groups. Groups are not simply collections of individuals, they develop their own dynamics. There are leaders, influencers, friendships, alliances. People closer to the centre, people near the edges. Sometimes this is deliberate, often it isn't. But human beings are extremely sensitive to where they sit within the social hierarchy. We notice who gets involved first, who gets consulted, who gets included in private conversations, who seems to know what's happening. And sometimes one person can have a surprising amount of influence over who becomes part of a group and who remains outside it. This can also happen in workplaces, families, friendship groups, communities, even among perfectly mature adults. We like to think we've left the playground politics behind. We haven't. We've just got better clothes and mortgages now. The same basic human behaviours still exist. Belonging, status, alliance, competition, exclusion. We're still human. Sometimes exclusion isn't about you. And this is the important part of the new conversation. Not every exclusion is rejection. People are allowed to have different friendships. Someone may know another person better. There may genuinely be limited space. People have different social circles. Not everybody can be included in everything, and sometimes you simply weren't invited. That's life. The danger comes when we immediately turn someone else's decision into a judgment of our worth. Because I wasn't invited and nobody wants me are not the same sentence. One is an event. The other is a conclusion, and we need to be very careful about the conclusions we attach to events, because once you've decided they don't want me, your behaviour may change. You become quieter, you withdraw, you stop attending things, you wait for people to contact you, you become hyper-aware of every interaction, and ironically, the fear of exclusion can make us exclude ourselves. But sometimes it is deliberate. We also shouldn't pretend deliberate exclusion doesn't exist, because it does. Exclusion can be used as social power. Sometimes somebody deliberately leaves another person out because they want them to notice. It's a way of communicating without communicating. You're not part of this. That's why the deliberate exclusion can feel particularly cruel, because there's plausible deniability. I can't invite everyone. It wasn't a big thing. You're being sensitive. And perhaps all of this is true. Or perhaps exclusion was being used to send a message. The important thing is that you don't have to spend 3 months becoming a detective. Watch the pattern. One event may mean nothing. Repeated behavior tells you something. And when somebody repeatedly shows you where you stand, believe the behavior. Don't necessarily need an argument. You don't need revenge. You don't need to convince everyone that you've been wronged. You simply have information. And information allows you to make different choices. Why we sometimes try harder after rejection. Here's another fascinating human response. When we feel rejected, we often become more desperate to be accepted by the very people who rejected us. Think about that. Someone makes you feel unwanted, and suddenly their approval becomes incredibly important. We start trying harder, being nicer, making yourself useful, trying to prove that you're funny, interesting, generous, and valuable. Essentially, you're saying, please reconsider my social value. But there's a problem. If you have to constantly audition for belonging, you're never going to feel secure once you get it, because somewhere inside you, you will always know, I had to persuade these people to want me. Real belonging feels different. You don't have to perform constantly. You don't have to monitor every word. You don't have to wonder whether one mistake will get you removed. You can relax. And perhaps that's one of the best measures of whether you're genuinely belonging somewhere. Can you relax there? Rejection can reveal where you've abandoned yourself. Sometimes being excluded exposes something uncomfortable. You've been waiting for somebody else to decide whether you belong. Waiting for the invitation, waiting to be included, waiting to be chosen, waiting for somebody else to open the door. But now you're an adult now. You can create the table. You can invite people. You can start the conversation. You can build your own friendships. You can create your own community. And this can be enormously liberating. Because the moment you stop asking, why haven't they chosen me? And start asking, who do I choose? The entire power dynamic changes. And suddenly you're not standing outside somebody else's social world hoping to be admitted. You're building your own. Building isn't about being included everywhere. This is perhaps the most important distinction. Healthy belonging doesn't mean everybody likes you. It doesn't mean you're invited to everything. It doesn't mean every group wants you. And it certainly doesn't mean you have to mold yourself into whatever shape is required to gain admission. Real belonging means there are places in your life where you don't have to question whether you're welcome. People with whom you don't need to perform. People who contact you because they genuinely want your company. People around whom you can simply be yourself. And perhaps, as we get older, we begin to understand something we desperately needed to know when we were younger. You don't need everybody to choose you. You need to become much better at choosing where you place yourself. And in my closing comments, so if being left out has ever affected you more deeply than you thought it should, don't immediately shame yourself for the reaction. Be curious about it. Ask yourself, what did this event mean to me? Was I simply disappointed, or did it connect with something older? Did I turn one person's choice into a judgment about my worth? Am I trying to gain acceptance somewhere I never actually felt comfortable? And perhaps the biggest question is, why am I waiting for someone else to decide whether I belong? Because sometimes rejection is painful, sometimes it's unfair, sometimes it's deliberate, and sometimes it's information about the people around you, information about your own history, and occasionally information that tells you it's time to stop knocking on someone else's door and build your own table. I'm Sara Wheeler, and if you enjoy exploring the psychology behind modern life, relationships, and why humans behave the way we do, subscribe to my channel, because you're not broken, you're human.